This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, now let's begin this session where we are going to discuss three RC sets which are moderate to difficult when it comes to difficulty level, and all of them have come in the exam previous. The reason I have given you these three RCs was to make you understand that at times you don't need to understand the entire RC. So if you remember in the first couple of RC classes also, I emphasized on the fact that you don't need to read the entire RC, or you don't need to understand the entire RC. You just need to understand the parts of it, especially the ones related to the questions, especially if the question, there is no question which is inference based question given. Most of the questions given were not inference based, which meant that I did not need to read the passage twice or thrice. I did not need to understand the entire passage. That was the sole purpose of giving you this set. Now we'll start off with the questions, and as we start off, I will keep on explaining you that why didn't we require to understand the entire passage in either of the three RCs in detail. You could have attempted these three RCs with 70 to 80% accuracy even without reading them twice or thrice. Let's start off. The first RC, what is the answer you are getting for the first question? Some are saying D, some are saying C, some are saying E. Okay. So can I eliminate option A and B and discuss option C, D, and E? Okay. Now let me just take you. Now the question is asking the primary purpose of the passage, and we all know that the primary purpose of the passage will either be given in the first paragraph or the last paragraph. Correct? Are we on the same page or at this thing that the purpose of the passage will either be in the first paragraph or the last paragraph? Now, let's read the first paragraph. In reaction to a rigid, over-refined classical curriculum, some educational philosophers have swung sharply to an espousal of life experience as sole source of learning, using their narrow interpretation of John Dewey's theory for support and spouting such phrases as teach the child, not the subject. They demand an end to rigorous study and insist that only through doing can learning take place. While not all the adherents to this philosophy would totally eliminate the study of great books, the gradual subordination of literature in the school curriculum reflects their influence. Can I say that each and everything after this paragraph is talking about how reading books help people widen their perspective to look at things? What is the purpose of literature? Why read if life alone is to be our teacher? James Joyce tells us this. The great writers extend our understanding of ourselves and our world. Similarly, if you will find, this is the point which is mentioned in every point, in every paragraph which is there. The function of literature is a part of it. The function of literature is not something which is covered in the entire passage. So as all of you did, B had to be eliminated. Now between options C, D, and E, overcome the opposition of Dewey's followers to the inclusion of contemporary literature in the curriculum. No, nowhere had the author wanted to oppose the followers. He's trying to talk about the importance of reading literature as the part of the school curriculum. He's talking about that, and he's talking about the benefits of reading great literature while you are at school. He is not trying to oppose Dewey's followers at all, or he is not trying to support Dewey's followers. He is not either overcoming the opposition, not supporting the opposition. So he cannot be my answer. Do we agree with this? That if we go back and read the first paragraph, we could understand that what is the impact the author is wanting to create, rather than say just overcoming the opposition of Dewey's followers. Anyone who marked E, do you agree? Do you agree? Okay. Now between C and D, tell me what will be the answer. Advocate the adoption of a new philosophy of education. No, he's not talking about adopting a new philosophy at education at all. Has anywhere the author suggested that you should go and adopt the books, or is he talking about no, that you should not read the literature, or is he saying that you should read the literature? No, he's just talking about, he's forming a case that why the great literature, or say why good books should continue to be the part of the school curriculum. Am I right over here? Do we all agree with this? My correct answer for this question is going to be option number D. He's, and please, we need to understand that for this, and for this particular thing, I did not need to read anything, or say I did not need to read the passage twice, because I could very easily see that nowhere the author was trying to make the case for adoption of a new philosophy of education or any new method. He was just saying that there are people who are coming up with a new theory where they are saying that you should focus on learning, life experiences as a sole source of learning. But no, you should keep books as well, because books have their own benefit. As simple as that. This again goes back to the first paragraph itself. It can be inferred from the passage that the author considers those who believe in life experience as a sole source of learning to be practical, progressive. Definitely not. Between C, D, and E, can I say that D also cannot be the answer, because he's nowhere talking about that whether those people are flexible or not. Misguided, inflexible, ignorant. Let's go back to the first paragraph. In reaction to a rigid, over refined classical curriculum, some educational philosophers have swung sharply to life experiences are the sole source of learning. Using their narrow interpretation. Narrow interpretation is what the author is calling them. Those people have narrow interpretation. If those people have narrow interpretation, are they misguided, are they inflexible, or are they ignorant? Do we all identify that their narrow interpretation is where my answer lies? Do we all agree with this? Before we move to the answer, do we all agree that using their narrow interpretation, and that's what I'm trying to tell you, that you don't need to understand the entire passage in detail, just this identification of the right paths, their narrow interpretation. Now tell me, if your interpretation is narrow or is limited, are you misguided, are you ignorant, or are you inflexible? Misguided? How can you be misguided if your interpretation is limited? Misguiding is done by a person or a source. Here you interpret yourself. You are ignorant of everything happening, or you are ignorant of the holistic picture, or say you are less aware. Ignorant does not mean that you are purposely ignoring. Ignorant also means that you have a limited knowledge. And that's where my correct answer is going to be ignorant. Misguided is always done by someone else or some other source. Inflexible, definitely not. Ignorant is not that I am purposely ignoring. Ignorant can also be because of not being aware of something. Do we get it? Do we get that why am I not going for misguided and why am I going for ignorant? And does anyone have any doubt? So was this question impossible to do or was it possible to do? Just very, very minute things we need to keep in mind and we can get the correct answer. Inflexible means that you have, Andrela is asking that why not inflexible. Now, inflexible means that you are aware of something, but you do not want to accept it because you believe that whatever you think is correct. That is inflexible. In this scenario, these people, they have a narrow interpretation because they are unaware of the other things or they are not fully aware of the other things. Third one should be easy. Tell me, option question number 3. Question number 3. Come on, this was the easiest question of the passage. The answer is E. Arshi Harshit Parinay, correct. It is E. Yes, Udesha. Yes, Vanishri. This is E. Very, very outrightly is it said in the second paragraph. How much wider is the understanding we gain from reading than from viewing life through the keyhole of our individual experience? It's all about widening your experience through books, is what the author is saying. If you don't read, you miss out at the wider thing, and hence your view will be myopic. Myopic means short sighted. Option number E is the correct answer. He is not saying that if you will not read books, you will have below average reading skills. No, it's not saying that. He's not saying that if you will not read books, you will not be a good problem solver. He's not saying that uh, if you will not read books, you will believe that art has nothing to do with life. No, he's saying that if you don't read books, which help you to widen your perspective, if you will not read them, you will have a myopic view of themselves and the world. Because Vipul, the purpose the author is asking you to read books is not to believe that art has anything to do with life. The purpose of author asking you to read books is to widen your perspective, to look at things and to have a wider range of view about things which happen in the world. This question is a reverse way of asking that why do you think that the author wants students to read books? Is it clear? Question number 4. Question number 4. How can you do this wrong? How can you do this wrong? This was another easy question. Just because we formed the perception that the paragraph passage is tough, you cannot be doing the answers incorrect. Let's go back and read. Federal judge Hand wrote, I venture to believe that it is as important to a judge called upon to pass on a question of constitution, to pass on a question of constitutional law, to have at least a boring acquaintance with this, as with the books which have been written specifically on the subject. Where is social issues over here? Where is liberal arts over here? Why are we marking that? Specifically written on the subject means subject has come earlier in this paragraph. Am I making some sense? Where is liberal arts mentioned in the same paragraph? Where is social problems? No, question is specifically about Judge Hand. Don't think about the entire RC. It's just about the paragraph in which Judge Hand is mentioned, and it has to be the constitutional law before the judge. The question of constitutional law, that is the subject. This was an easy question. Understood? Please avoid making such mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes here. We all are in a learning phase, but you should know that when to focus on only a particular paragraph and when to think about the entire RC. Ideally, did I require to understand the entire RC for these 4 questions? We have solved this entire RC with just 3 paragraphs. So ideally, it was fine to read this passage once, but it was not fine to read this passage twice or thrice just because you wanted to understand the passage. Always after one read of the passage, please go through the questions. You will get the flavor. If I was at your place, I would have read these 4 questions. I immediately could have identified there is no inference based question over here. That means I don't require the holistic understanding of the passage. Vipul, if you remember the STP class, STP you could easily identify by just the first paragraph and the last paragraph. And to understand the scope, you could simply just browse through the paragraphs. You don't need to read the passage twice or thrice. Uddeshya, if you will go through the live classes recording, you will find S stands for scope of the passage, T stands for tone of the passage, P stands for purpose of the passage. Okay, you may go through those recordings. If you will have any doubt on understanding what do I mean by scope, what do I mean by tone, what do I mean by purpose, please feel free to ask your doubts. Just repeating the answers. First question, option number D. Second question, option number E. Third question, option number E. Fourth question, option number A. Yes, the recording is uploaded in the dashboard already, Saurav. Vanishri, how to identify? This is a good question. See, always, that's why I always say, always read the questions. And just read the question, don't read the options. Just read the question. If the question has an inference based question, if any of the questions given has an inference based question, then you need to understand the passage. If question there is no question around inference based, you don't need to understand the entire passage. And Bani, did any of these 4 questions were inference based? And Tushar, just always read the first paragraph. That's it, to understand whether what's the flavor of the what's the flavor of the RC. Read the questions, it will always help you. That's how you increase your speed. Understood? Makes sense to everyone? Nayan, please go through the recordings of RCs in your course. No, I am assuming that you have not gone through the recordings of the RCs. Please go through RC classes. How to identify the type of the questions. The questions are could be categorized into 3 or 4 categories. Please go through the recordings. Please go through the RC videos in your course. Please ask me any doubts which you will have in understanding the type of questions even after that. So question could be a factual question could be an inference based question. When I say factual, I mean that you could specifically point out to a specific paragraph to find out the answer, rather than trying to decipher something out of the overall passage. The inference based question majorly wants you to think beyond the information given in the passage. Bhavya, if you will have any doubts, please feel free to ask. Nayan, I have broadly answered you. I would request you to go through all the RC videos and please ask doubts if anything is there which you are not able to understand. So inference based questions, guys, typically would want you to think beyond the information given in the passage, and the factual question is always based on the specific information given in a specific paragraph of the passage. Question number 1 of second passage. What is the answer? Right. Right, Anjali. Right, Sneha. Right, Anmol. Right, Andrila. Right, Kashish. All of you have got this correct. It is B. This was easy. Option number B is the correct answer. I am good. I am happy that all of you are getting it correct. Option number B is the correct answer. Yes, Arshi. Yes, Saurav. Tanya, Shivani. Option number B is the correct answer. Since all of you are getting B, I am not discussing this question. Shall I move to the next question? Okay. Question number 2. The author's quotation of a statement by Taine serves which of the following functions in the passage? Waiting for more answers. Okay, let me. So I am seeing the fight between option A and D. Any other option also apart from A and D? Vipul says B. It resolves an apparent contradiction in the philosophy of the Impressionists. Okay. A, B, and D in the race. I can eliminate option C and E. Okay, let's go to the quotation of Taine. Back to the passage. This is the passage. This Greek view of matter persisted so far as painting was concerned into the 19th century. The Impressionists, on the other hand, viewed light, not matter, as the ultimate visual reality. The philosopher Taine expressed the Impressionist view of things when he said, the chief person in a picture is the light in which everything is bathed. Is when Taine is saying this, just tell me, is it talking about one specific picture, or is it talking about the theme or the belief of Impressionists? What is he talking about? Only one picture or the theme of Impressionists? Okay. Also, is he trying to justify something, or is he just trying to elaborate on something? Is he trying to justify something, or is he trying to elaborate on something? Perfect. We all agree? Let's go back to the question. Option number A says it furnishes a specific example of an impressionist painting that features light as its subject. So should this be my answer? No. Correct. No, right? A is not my answer. Someone said option number B resolves an apparent contradiction. Resolves an apparent contradiction means you are trying to justify a particular view held against you, which apparently he is not doing. Correct? Option number B cannot be the answer. What will be my answer? It summarizes the unique perspective that the Impressionists brought to painting. Does this fit into the picture? Anushka, Shweta, Kashish, Parinay, do you think that option number D is fitting into the picture? It's elaborating, it's a theme-based thing. Correct. Option number D. Option number D is my correct answer. Vani, okay, sure. I'll explain to you. Let's go back. The philosopher Taine, Vani, the philosopher Taine expressed the impressionist view of things. He expressed the impressionist view of things when he said the chief person in a picture, it's not the picture, it's a picture, is the light in which everything is bathed. Is he talking about the theme of Impressionists, or is he talking about a specific picture of Impressionists? Vani? Right. Is he defending or justifying something, or is he elaborating on something? Perfect. Now do you understand, Vani, why am I going for option number D? Because option number A is talking about a specific picture and option number B is talking about justifying the contradiction. Perfect. Let's move ahead. If you ask me, question number 3 was the toughest question of this passage. 1 and 2 you should have got correct. Question number 3 is the toughest one, and the best attempt would be to leave this question unattempted in the exam. But let's see what are the options you all are getting. Then option number A, Nayan, in case it was the picture. Parinay, yes, you are correct. The correct answer is option number A, discontinuous dabs of unmixed pigment. That's what the mosaic of colors refer to. Option number C, definitely not, because mosaic word does not stand for clearly defined form or objects. That's one. Second, nowhere, nowhere have we said that just because we are using light to depict everything, the picture is devoid of emotive or literary qualities. No. Option number D, no. E is very specific. You are trying to put up specific colors. On what basis? So I cannot say on what basis am I saying that the mosaic of colors is constituting of red, green, and blue. What is the basis of my statement? Are we all getting that? Why am I not going for C, D, and E? E is very specific. E is very specific. Vipul, it was more about understanding the meaning of mosaic and eliminating some of the options. This was a tough question because no matter how many times you read the passage, you will not be able to pull out the answer of this question from the passage. This is a tough question, Vipul. That's why if you don't know the meaning of mosaic, the best way is to leave the question unattempted in the exam. But if you do, you at least know that you need to remove option C, D, and E. If you ask me, I would have remained confused between option A and B and skipped the question. C, D, and E, I can eliminate. C, D, and E, I can eliminate, but between A and B, I will remain confused. Just because if I know the meaning of the word mosaic, I could mark A as the answer. So the approach, the reason I'm telling you this is now we are getting into that time zone when you should also know when to not attempt a question, because exam is going to have negative marking as well. Correct? It's very the importance of leaving an answer or leaving a question is as much as attempting a question correctly. Remember, incorrectly marked answer fetches you negative marking. Perfect. All of you understood this one? Perfect. Let's move to the passage which went bouncer to most of you, the last passage. Trust me, I read it, it went bouncer to me as well. And I went back and took the approach of questions helping me out. I took the approach of questions helping me out. Trust me, most of the words in this passage went bouncer. Correct? And it's completely fine. There's nothing wrong in that. If I would have found this passage in the actual exam, I would not have attempted one or two questions, more than one or two questions from this passage. It's a tough one, but let's see how to handle it. But it gives you, see, when you get encountered, no, the reason I gave you this passage was not to get correct answers from you. The purpose of giving you this passage was to make you understand when to not attempt an RC as well. If suppose this was the first RC in your verbal section, you keep on reading this passage again and again, you will end up wasting 15-20 minutes. If you get such a passage, skip it. in the exam. Now, since we are practicing, let's try to identify which one or two questions or three questions out of five you could have attempted. First question which you could have attempted is the first one on the screen. Tell me the answer for the first question. No, it's not E. Nowhere is the author trying to emphasize on the policies inherent in the most common view of Johnson. No, what he is trying to, I'm going to tell you a very, very broad view of the passage, a view which you could have got if you read the first paragraph only, and even if you did not understand the first paragraph entirely, you could have easily, even if you did not understand the first paragraph entirely, you could have easily concluded what I am going to tell you right now. Let me take you to the first paragraph. Let me take you to the first paragraph. Right. Many readers assumed that as a neoclassical literary critic, Samuel Johnson. Okay. Now, what could I infer from this? Johnson was the critic of neoclassical literature, correct? Very simple. Would normally prefer the abstract, the formal, and the regulated, and that Johnson would prefer the abstract form, the formal form, the regulatory form, correct? To the concrete, natural, and spontaneous in a work of literature, which just with this sentence, can I say that the neoclassical theory is more about being concrete, more about being natural, more about being spontaneous, and Samuel was a critic, and everyone would typically believe that he prefers abstract, formal, and regulatory. Is it correct? Very easy to identify from the first paragraph. Just reading one more line. After this, I did not understand anything in the passage, to be honest with you. Yet, any close reading of Johnson's criticism shows that Johnson is not blind to the importance of immediate, vivid, specific detail in literature, which means that if I pull out the work, the critical work which Johnson has done, I would find that he was not completely blind, or he was not a complete opposer of the neoclassical literature, which is immediate, vivid, specific. And he himself emphasized at times on the need for telling in a specific way rather than just the accidental detail. Can I infer this much? Can I infer this much? Parinay, Bhavya, Pratap, can I infer this much, whatever I have told you? Bhavya, past CAT papers are the best way. Okay, so Pratap, Parinay, Bhavya, everyone, Vanishri, everyone, are you all able to at least resonate with what I told as my conclusion of first paragraph? Okay. Now let's just scroll through the passage. I could not understand anything. This was a very difficult passage. Just like you, even I could not understand anything. Now see, in other ways too, I'm just reading at a very, very high level how I will read in the exam. In other ways too, Johnson's critical method had much in common with that of romantics, etc., etc. Then his famous argument against the slavish following is what I read. That means the author is talking about one of his arguments. Again, the sentiment thus expressed could easily be endorsed by any of the romantics. Is vital quality of Johnson's criticism. Again, I see something about Johnson's work being quoted throughout. So when I scroll, could I quickly see that there are a lot of works, the critical work of Johnson which is being used by the author, and every time author is using it to tell that how Johnson was not blind to the neoclassical literature. Can I say this much? Only this much. Tushar, Vanishri, Parinay, Akshata, what do you think? Kitana, Sneha, Anushka? I just keep on taking the name so that none of you are sleeping. I'm so sorry, I just want it to be very interactive because it's very important for for us to understand these things, and these are going to be the differentiator between someone who's going to score 99 plus percentile in verbal vis-a-vis someone who is going to score 95. Tanya, Saransh, Saurav, Anupriya, Mauli, Kevin, right? Exactly, Ishan. Author is quoting Johnson throughout the work. He's quoting his works. Okay? You are perfectly correct, Ishan. Let's come back to the question number 1 then. Now tell me what should be the answer. Okay, let's eliminate the options. Let's go through the other route. Let's eliminate the options. Option number E, certainly not. Can I eliminate option number E? Can I eliminate option number E? Perfect. I can also eliminate option number C, and I can also eliminate option number A. I am confused between option number B and option number D. Perfect. Let's read both. Option number D says, quoting Johnson's remarks about the critical approaches prevalent in his own day. And what is my passage? What is my question? The author of the passage develops her points about Johnson. And what are the points which are being developed? The point being developed is Johnson was not blind to neoclassical literature. Full stop. If I use option number D, it means that Johnson was being critical about something else, and as an author, I'm trying to develop an argument that Johnson was critical of something else, and I was using his work to refer to the same. But author is not doing that. Author is citing specific illustrations drawn from Johnson's work to develop her point about the Johnson about Johnson, and that was that he was not blind to neoclassical literature. B does not limit my scope, Bhavya. If the question was the primary purpose of the passage, then I will not go for option number B. But the question is not primary purpose of the passage. Question is, what is author using to develop the points about Johnson? So, was this particular question in this passage doable? So, Ishan, the author of the passage develops her points about Johnson primarily by, the question is not what is the purpose of the passage. The question is, what has the author used? What has the author used to develop her points about Johnson. And what has he used? What has she used? She has used specific illustrations from Johnson's work itself. She has not quoted Johnson's remarks about the critical approaches prevalent in his own day, because that would mean that the author is trying to say about Johnson that Johnson was critical of certain approaches prevalent during his days. But author is not doing that. Author is using the citations just to tell that Johnson was not blind to neoclassical theory. No, Saransh. That's why I took you to first paragraph. The author is trying to tell that Johnson was not blind to neoclassical theory. He's not trying to compare the two theories. He's not trying to compare the two theories. The passage is about Johnson. The passage is not about a particular theory. If you would see later on, the author is also talking about Johnson turning into a poet, and that his poetic work was more like the modern poems. If I read last two paragraphs, the author is trying to develop the view about Johnson. Is it clear, Saransh? Question number 2, tough one. Ideally, I will leave it in the exam. I will not attempt it, but let's discuss. Question number 2. Okay, can I eliminate option A and B because they are very specific? And any question where I'm asking what a particular thing implies, I will never be this specific. Option A and B, I will only eliminate because they are very specific. Option C, D, and E, attempts to judge literary merit on the basis of correctness, artificiality and abstraction in literary works, the use of a special diction in the writing of poetry. We read first paragraph. Remember, we read first paragraph. What was neoclassical theory all about? What was neoclassical theory all about? Let's go to first paragraph. Many readers assume that as a neoclassical literary critic, Samuel Johnson would normally prefer the abstract, the formal, and the regulatory. What does this mean? Does this mean that abstract, formal, and regulatory was neoclassical, or was this the opposing view? Guys, Tanya, Parinay, no. Johnson would norm as a critic, Johnson will prefer abstract, formal, and regulatory, and the regulated to the concrete, the natural, and the spontaneous. Does this mean that the critic is concrete? Critic favors concrete, natural, or spontaneous, or critic favors abstract, formal, and regulatory? Critic favors abstract. Neoclassical is about the correctness, the vividness, the natural, the spontaneous, the concreteness, the vivid, the specific detail. Am I correct? That neoclassical is about being vivid, specific, immediate, concrete, and the opposing view is abstract. Correct? Let's go back to the question. Now tell me, the passage implies that the neoclassical critics generally condemned. What will they condemn? Something which they don't favor. Artificiality and abstraction in literary works. Abstraction is what they preferred. So D cannot be my answer. Between C and D, what will be my answer then? Yes. Do you get it? How we could have solved it? Again, majorly the first paragraph play. But yes, this question was tough. I would agree. I would agree that this question was tough. Ideally, I will not attempt it in the paper. But since we are in the learning phase, we are discussing this. And option number C, so option number C is how is this is how I will arrive at the correct answer. Another tough question. Question number 3 is tough. What is the answer? Anushka, true. This is the most confusing question of the entire passage. This particular question is the most confusing one. But if you get such a question, you should immediately move to the next question, ideally. According to the passage, Johnson's opinion of Edison's was. Okay, so one option says it was condemning, other says that it is self-contradictory, third says it's ultimately negative, fourth says it was laudatory, fifth says it was uncharacteristically bold. Okay, let's go. Where is the opinion mentioned? Here, the sentiment thus expressed could easily be endorsed. The sentiment thus expressed could easily be endorsed by any of the romantics. It exemplifies is vital quality of Johnson's criticism, as is the willingness to jettison laws of criticism when to do, makes possible a more direct appeal to the emotions of the reader. Addison's Cato, highly praised in Johnson's days for its correctness, is damned with faint praise by Johnson. Faint praise by Johnson. So is Johnson being negative of Cato, or is he praising him in a very, very mild way? Cato affords a splendid exhibition of artificial and fictitious manners and delivers just and noble sentiments. Diction is elevated and harmonious, but it hopes and fears communicate no vibration to the heart. Wordsworth could hardly dimmer. Is 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 Johnson trying to go against his own statement? Cato affords this he first praises, but then he says that it fails to communicate to the heart. He praises, he then takes it back. Does he do this? Because the moment I use the word but its hopes and fears communicate no vibration to the heart. Has he taken back whatever praise he did? Can I say this? Roundly condemnatory? No. A cannot be the answer. Ultimately negative? No. C cannot be the answer. Yes, Parinay, he is appreciating with a little disapproval. Uncharacteristically bold? No. I'm left between B and D. Is it self-contradictory or is it effusively adulatory? Tell me now. It's easy. It's easy now. It's self-contradictory. The correct answer is option number B. Understood? Yes. Correct answer is somewhat self-contradictory. Adulatory means laudatory, to praise someone, Vipul. Vipul, adulatory means laudatory, to praise someone. Fourth one, you should get it correct. Fourth one. Yes, you are correct. It's surprisingly modern poet. This is outrightly mentioned in the passage. All of you got it correct. Surprisingly modern poet. Last one. Last one. The author of the passage is primarily concerned with defending a reputation? No, not at all. He's not trying to defend any reputation. Reconciling conflicting views? No, he's not trying to reconcile. Comparing two schools of thought? No. The passage is about Johnson. He is challenging what people assumed about Johnson. And Parinay, yes, you are correct from the first line. There is an assumption about Johnson that he is opposing. Is a person who is in opposition of neoclassical theory, but people don't know if they deep dive that Johnson was not blind to neoclassical beliefs. It's challenging an assumption is the correct answer. Nowhere has he tried to provide any evidence in support of an established theory. In fact, he is challenging that. Do we all agree? Ashi, Anjali, Anushka, Pratap, everyone else? D is the correct answer. Perfect. Was this these three RCs? Did these three RCs challenge you? Tushar, good. Did these three RCs challenge you? Do you want me to send you more such RCs for the next class? Perfect. Sure. I will send you more RCs on these lines to practice. We will have next verbal class on Wednesday. On next Wednesday, we will have the next class of RCs. Parinay, start off with the RC topic test in your course. They also will challenge you, but not as difficult as this in all the tests, but they will be of varying difficulty level. Start taking RC topic tests in the course. Yes, Bhavya, you definitely did okay. Anushka, first two. From IP mat perspective, first two. Third one will not come. Shan, yes, we will have classes on parajumbles and out of context and summary questions as well. We will start having those classes from first week of August. In August, we will complete all parajumbles, out of context and summary. Don't worry. Anushka, I guess I answered your question. The first two RCs. Great. So I'll be sharing with you the set of another three RCs for the next class. Tushar, Theta always comes for Theta never comes in RC. RC questions are always going to be MCQ. So when we will do parajumbles, when we will do out of context, we will do Theta questions. We will do them, Tushar. We will. Theta basically means type in the answer because you don't get options for parajumble questions in CAT examination. Harsh, they will begin from second week of August. Great. So thank you everyone for joining. We will have next verbal class on coming Wednesday. Thank you everyone. Good night.